First, sort of refresher slide, drainage priorities. As you may recall, we sort of characterized our drainage projects in tiers of priority. And then we had 5 tiers ranging from first tier, which were those projects that had the most chance of property damage or risk of public safety, to the projects which were a nuisance, potential flooding issue, but wouldn't necessarily create a great amount of threats in terms of public safety or property damage. So the council approved that 5-tier program. We were working on some of those projects, as you've heard me talk about before. Storm drains are probably the most challenging in terms of funding. There's really very little money out there for storm drains. But we did have a couple projects that were underway that we recently completed. Emerson Street project was a project that runs down Emerson through the Castle Park neighborhood. It runs almost all the way down to Fifth Avenue in pieces. There was some sections and then a stop and then some more sections. And that was a key project for us to get done in advance of any of the street work we do in Castle Park. We obviously, we've heard from you and from the public, they don't like it when we fix streets and then dig them up. So let's get the drainage project fixed first before we then go in and do those streets. We have our ongoing corrugated metal pipe replacement program. I think when we were before you in April, we said we had about $800,000 of red flag projects. They're still out there. We just finished an emergency CMP project. We'll be bringing a report to you soon on 30th Street, which was not one of those $840,000 of red flag projects, I don't think. And so it sort of gives you the nature of CMP. It can change fast. It can be very fast.
Jack, thank you. In regards to the CMP, the corrugated metal pipe, is there a lot of pipe in the city where we just don't know it's there? I know at some of the projects people were digging in and suddenly you run into a pipe, whether it's SDG&E or some pipe that had been abandoned. What's the reality in us knowing where some of these missing pipes are?
We, on the corrugated metal pipe, going back about 2 years when we got the funding to do the televising of that system, at the time we assumed we had about 88,000 lineal feet of that pipe. As we got into televising it, we ended up discovering that we had 94,000 lineal feet. So there was some few thousands of lineal feet of that we didn't know about, that we were able to find out about. And we think that there's probably still a little bit out there. We don't think it's a significant amount because it really, you can look through the manholes and see where the connections are and get a pretty good sense. What you're describing was an SDG&E pipe that had been abandoned when SDG had come in and done a project. And oftentimes they'll abandon in place the pipes, and then when we go and do work, we end up hitting the pipe, and then in this case there were other ancillary issues. There was asbestos coating on the pipe and got into a whole different level of complexity with that. But that's not an uncommon thing to find, particularly in old neighborhoods where utilities will have abandoned older facilities in place, and when we come into work, they're going to find them after they get back in touch with the utilities to come out and do it before we get at least a cost or anything over here, or cheaper cost from there. Thank you.
Jack, a quick question. You said that drainage projects are harder to get to. Why is that?
We have a storm drain fund. We have a storm drain fund that generates about $550,000 a year. The revenue is 70 cents on everybody's sewer bill. Remember, recall Tuesday night, that was the one column we didn't talk about. That's because, unlike the sewer fee, it's not a protest vote to raise the storm drain fee. It's an affirmative vote. So it's very difficult to get an affirmative vote. And while it would be possible to go out and ask for it, our view as staff has been to bundle this together and deal with it comprehensively, because I think if you go and ask for a piece of it and you get a yes vote, it's going to be much harder to come back and ask for something else, because the voters are going to say, wait a minute, I just gave you some money to do this and now you're coming back for more. And so we wanted to try and deal with this infrastructure issue comprehensively and not deal with it piecemeal. I think that's the way it's been done in the past. But of that $500,000 and some of storm drain fund fees, every penny goes to our operating cost. Not a penny of it is going to a capital project in about 5 years. And so we look for grants where we have pipes in the streets that we can use street-related funds. We'll do that. We talked about RCT Tuesday night. That's a capital fund that we can use for anything, anywhere. We've used that a lot. That actually was what we used to fund our $4.5 million of drainage projects as part of the Western Shore Holistic Program, is fully from the RCT program. So, but it's very limited. There's no transit, there's no gas tax, there's no of those sorts of funding sources available to cities for storm drains.
If I could just tack on to that, Jack's point about it not being like wastewater or sewer, I'm sorry, water or sewer, which are the affirmative vote or the protest vote type of enterprise. The state legislature has tried to take up this issue to make the stormwater system the same as those. And frankly, it hasn't been able to get out of committee over the last several years. The other thing, just to give you some additional context, is that we took a look at the stormwater fee. Jack mentioned that it's 70 cents a month for residents, for example. The average in the state per month for residents is $5. So some are higher and some are lower, but frankly, 70 cents is almost at the very lowest end. So you can see why there's very little funding left to, there's no funding left to do capital projects. And now with the new stormwater permit, which has a lot more requirements in it, there's even more competition for those scarce stormwater revenue.
You would only always go to look to that
Fund to find the funding. You would never think of going elsewhere using, say, general fund money or other kinds of. I know it's all. I know that there's nothing there, right?
Well, we have a slide, it's the first one we mentioned
Okay.
later on, is general fund. We'll look anywhere.
Yeah.
There's other options, and we're going to talk about some of those options, but in terms of what's available to us today,
I understand.
that's pretty much it. Just real quickly, just to wrap up on the drainage, we have some of these canyons. You saw Lawn Canyon on your tour, the erosion issues that we have in some of the canyons. Those become significant drainage issues for us, for residents downstream and upstream. You get slides in there that block it up, the water affect properties both upstream and downstream. We do have a project in the Telegraph Canyon drainage basin, which is a little different because we have a diff for Telegraph Canyon that we can use in the western part of the city. We're doing a study right where Third and L come together through there across from the golf course. That's been a long-term flooding backup problem. And then we did complete a drainage project on 2nd Avenue north of 8th Street. It was behind some houses. It was a failing CMP. We actually tacked onto a sewer job as well. So we have gotten some of the drainage projects. Both Emerson and Second were priority 1 projects. So we haven't moved off the priority 1 list. And that's on page 4 of your report. So there's still quite a few priority ones that we need to figure out a way to get to. Here's where they are. So you can see that's where the priority ones are. Hit a couple of them, and we're trying to do the studies on a couple others to at least be ready to roll if a grant comes out. It's a lot easier to get grants. It's a lot easier to get an earmark if you've got plans in the drawer. That's what we've always talked about. Where get your plans done, get your plans in the drawer, so when you walk into a body that has some money, you can say, "We're ready to go. Give us the money, and we can start tomorrow." As opposed to, "Well, we're going to put this project together, and 3 years from now we might be ready." So we're trying to do a lot of those studies in advance to be prepared to apply for them.
Mr. McKeon?
Thank you. So on the chart, basically, I see that on Central Basin, east of 2nd Avenue and north 8th Street, it shows funded, then correct?
Got the 4th one down, or
Third
third
one
one
down.
down? Yes.
So, and then the other ones, we don't have funding, or we do have funding?
We have limited funding for the 3rd NL culvert. We funded the study amount, where you see the 7.1 million. For the cost estimate of the job, I think we have $350,000 budgeted to do the studies.